Speaker Johnson is protecting pedophiles. That's what this is all about. The only reason Adelita Grijalva is not being sworn in right now is because he wants to protect whatever is in those files, all the pedophiles that would be revealed, and he wants to make sure every day that that doesn't happen, he has one more day to protect all those pedophiles, whether it's involving Donald Trump or any of his rich elite friends. That is what Speaker Johnson is doing here. Every reason that he has ever come up with has changed from day one, day two, day three. The only thing that's been consistent the whole time is that Speaker Johnson is trying to cover up for pedophiles. Is that clear enough? Speaker Johnson is covering up for pedophiles, and in the process, Arizona does not have a congresswoman. Right now, of all the times when we have flooding, do you know how often Arizona gets rain, let alone floods? In Tucson, in her district, those members do not have someone to call to ask for help because Speaker Johnson is covering up for pedophiles. Did you guys get that? Speaker Johnson is covering up for pedophiles. Thank you.
Okay, so let me get this straight. Mike Johnson, the guy who literally calls himself a man of faith, the Speaker of the House, who's supposed to represent transparency and accountability. He's now being sued. Yeah, you heard that right. Sued for blocking the release of Jeffrey Epstein's files. And get this, he's doing it by refusing to swear in a newly elected Democrat whose vote could actually force these documents into the light. Can you believe this? But before we go any further, real quick, let's be honest, you can't really trust mainstream media anymore. That's why we built Pump Politics, to bring you real stories, real context, and no corporate spin. If you want to stay ahead of the headlines, join our free newsletter. We'll send the news straight to your inbox every day. Just click the link in the description to join. And if you just want to support what we're doing, join us. Be part of the community that actually cares about the truth. All right, let's get back to the video. This isn't some conspiracy theory floating around on Twitter. This is real. A federal lawsuit was just filed on October 14, 2025 by Arizona Democrats and transparency activists. And what they're saying is wild. They're claiming that Johnson is intentionally leaving tens of thousands of Arizona voters without representation in Congress. Why? To protect whoever's name might be sitting in those Epstein files. Like, come on. This is the same Mike Johnson who stood up just a few months ago and said he supports full transparency on the Epstein documents. Said it with a straight face, told America he wanted the truth out there. And now he's doing everything in his power to make sure we never see those files. The woman at the center of all this? Adelita Grijalva. She won Arizona's 7th District fair and square. Election results were certified on October 14th. She should be in Congress right now, voting, representing her constituents. But Johnson won't swear her in. He's saying it's about procedure. He's blaming the government shutdown. But here's the thing, every single legal expert who's looked at this says that's garbage. There's no procedural reason to block her swearing-in ceremony. None. So what's really going on here? Well, Democrats say it's pretty obvious. Grijalva's vote would tip the balance in the House. Her vote could force a resolution demanding the release of every single document related to Jeffrey Epstein's client list, every flight log, every photograph, every name. And apparently that terrifies someone, maybe multiple someones. This is wild. The lawsuit doesn't mince words either. It accuses Johnson of intentional disenfranchisement. It says he's blocking the swearing in for political protection. Protection of who exactly? That's the question everyone's asking. And the activists behind this suit, they're warning that Johnson is skating dangerously close to unconstitutional territory. Like we're talking about a Speaker of the House potentially violating the Constitution to keep sex trafficking documents hidden. Let that sink in for a second. And you know what makes this even more infuriating? Johnson and the Republicans have this perfect little excuse ready. Oh, it's the shutdown. Oh, we can't do normal business right now. But here's what they're not telling you. Other members have been sworn in during shutdowns before. It's happened multiple times. There's literally precedent for this. So why is Grijalva different? Yeah, exactly. The timing here is also, let's just say, convenient. Johnson has been cutting short House business sessions for months now. Back in July, he literally ended a session early to avoid a vote on releasing the Epstein files. Politico covered it. Rolling Stone covered it. Everyone saw it happen. He claimed it was about scheduling conflicts, but we're not stupid. We can see what's happening. And now he's using a government shutdown, a crisis that's hurting millions of Americans, as cover to block a vote that could expose some of the most powerful people in the world as connected to a convicted sex trafficker. This is the swamp, guys. This is exactly what draining the swamp was supposed to be about. Accountability, transparency, justice for victims. But instead, we've got MAGA Mike playing games with democracy itself to keep those files locked away. The lawsuit demands two things. First, swear in Adelita Grijalva immediately. Give Arizona voters their representation. Second, allow an immediate vote on releasing the Epstein documents. No more delays, no more excuses, just transparency. Will it work? I don't know. But what I do know is this. Every single day that Johnson refuses to act, every single day he keeps Grijalva out of Congress, he's telling us something. He's telling us that protecting whoever's in those files is more important than democracy, more important than representation, more important than justice for Epstein's victims. And honestly, that should terrify every single American, whether you're Republican or Democrat or independent or whatever. Because if a speaker can just decide which elected officials get to serve based on how they might vote, we don't have a democracy anymore. So buckle up, because this story is about to get a whole lot messier. And the names in those files, they're probably more explosive than any of us can imagine, which is exactly why someone's working so hard to keep them hidden. Think about it. We're talking about Jeffrey Epstein here, a man who ran what can only be described as a trafficking operation for the elite, a man who had connections to presidents, to princes, to billionaires, to Hollywood, a man whose private island was literally nicknamed a place where unspeakable things happen. And when he finally got arrested, when justice was finally catching up, he ended up dead in a jail cell under circumstances that nobody really believes were just a simple suicide. Are you kidding me? And now the documents that could expose everyone involved, everyone who knew, everyone who participated, those documents are being blocked by the Speaker of the House using procedural gymnastics and a government shutdown as cover. This is bigger than politics. This is about whether powerful people get to operate above the law, whether they get to hurt vulnerable people and then hide behind their money and their connections, whether democracy actually means anything, or if it's just theater while the real decisions get made behind closed doors by people we never get to hold accountable. All right, so let's dig into what's actually happening here, because on the surface, this looks like a standard political fight, Democrats versus Republicans, another day in Washington. But when you start pulling the threads, this thing unravels into something way bigger. First, let's talk about Adelita Grijalva. Who is she? Why does her vote matter so much? Grijalva won a special election in Arizona's 7th district. It's a solidly Democratic district, has been for years. She ran on a platform of accountability and transparency, criminal justice reform, taking on corruption, the usual progressive talking points. Nothing too controversial for that district. She won pretty decisively, not even close. Election was certified October 14th. That's important. Once an election is certified, that person is legally the representative-elect. They have every right to be sworn in and start voting. There's no ambiguous legal gray area here. She won, she should be serving. But here's where it gets interesting. The House right now is split almost perfectly down the middle, like we're talking razor-thin margins. Every single vote counts. And there's been this ongoing push from Democrats and some independents to force a vote on releasing the Epstein files. They've been trying for months, but they've been just a few votes short. Grijalva's vote, that tips the scale. Suddenly the resolution to release those documents has enough support to actually pass. And that apparently is unacceptable to Mike Johnson. Now Johnson's excuse is the government shutdown. He's saying, look, we're in crisis mode right now. We can't do normal business. Swearing in new members isn't a priority when the government isn't even funded. And I'll admit, that sounds reasonable until you look at the history. During the 2013 shutdown, members were sworn in. During the 2018 shutdown, same thing. It's literally never been an issue before. Swearing in elected representatives is considered essential business. It takes like 5 minutes. There's a ceremony. They take an oath. Done. It doesn't require funding. It doesn't require normal operations. It just requires the speaker to schedule it. So why won't Johnson do it? Critics say it's obvious. He's stalling. He's hoping that if he can delay Grijalva long enough, maybe the momentum behind the Epstein file release will fade. Maybe public attention will move on to something else. Maybe the pressure will decrease. It's a classic political strategy. Run out the clock. But here's what makes this different from normal political maneuvering. We're not talking about a budget bill or a policy dispute. We're talking about documents related to one of the most notorious sex traffickers in modern history. Jeffrey Epstein didn't act alone. Everyone knows that. He had powerful friends, wealthy clients, politicians, business leaders, celebrities. In the documents that could expose all of them, they're sitting in a vault somewhere, protected, hidden, while Johnson plays procedural games. Let's talk about Johnson's history with this issue for a second, because it's something. Back in July, Mike Johnson actually came out publicly and said he supported releasing the Epstein files. He gave interviews, made statements, said Americans deserve the truth. It was this whole thing. People were actually surprised because, he's usually lockstep with the MAGA wing of the party. And there were rumors that certain names in those files might be problematic for Trump allies. But Johnson said, no, transparency matters. Full release. Let the chips fall where they may. Everyone thought, okay, maybe he's serious. Maybe this is a rare moment of bipartisan agreement. Democrats wanted the files released. Some Republicans wanted them released. Johnson said he wanted them released. Great, let's do it. Except then nothing happened. When it actually came time to vote, Johnson cut the House session short. Politico reported it. He literally sent everyone home early to avoid the vote. His office claimed it was because of scheduling conflicts, said they needed more time to review the resolution, said it wasn't the right moment. Translation, he folded, someone got to him, or he was never serious in the first place, and now he's actively blocking the one vote that could force his hand. By refusing to swear in Grijalva, he's making sure that vote never happens. It's not just passive obstruction anymore, it's active interference. The lawsuit filed by Arizona Democrats doesn't pull any punches. They're arguing that Johnson is committing intentional disenfranchisement. That's a legal term. It means deliberately denying someone their right to representation, and it's serious, like unconstitutional serious. The suit also alleges that Johnson's actions are specifically designed to block political accountability. They're saying out loud what everyone's thinking. This isn't about procedure. This isn't about the shutdown. This is about protecting people whose names are in those Epstein files. Now, we don't know who those people are. That's kind of the point. The files are sealed, but we can make some educated guesses based on what's already public. We know Epstein had connections to British royalty. We know he had connections to multiple American politicians. We know he hung out with tech billionaires and Hollywood moguls. And we know that when he was arrested, a lot of very powerful people got very nervous very quickly. Some of those people probably have pull with Republican leadership. Maybe some have pull with Democratic leadership too. I'm not here to claim this is purely a Republican cover-up, but right now, in this moment, it's the Republican Speaker of the House who's blocking transparency. That's just a fact. The activists behind the lawsuit are also making a broader point. They're saying this is about more than just Epstein. It's about whether elected officials can be kept out of Congress because of how they might vote. Think about that precedent. If Johnson gets away with this, what stops future speakers from doing the same thing? Oh, we don't like how this newly elected member might vote on an impeachment? Don't swear them in. Oh, this person might vote against our donors' interests? Keep them out. It's a dangerous road. And the tens of thousands of Arizona voters who elected Grijalva, they're just supposed to wait? Supposed to be okay with not having representation because the speaker decided their vote might be inconvenient? Are you kidding me? This is also happening against the backdrop of the government shutdown, which is its own mess. But here's where it gets really cynical. Republicans are using the shutdown as cover for all kinds of things, delaying votes, avoiding oversight, blocking investigations, and now apparently keeping elected Democrats out of Congress. The shutdown itself is supposedly about budget disagreements. But every day it goes on, more and more people are asking if there's something else going on, if maybe the chaos is the point, if maybe having everything in crisis mode makes it easier to do things that would normally cause massive backlash, like, I don't know, blocking the release of documents that could implicate some of the most powerful people in the world in connection with a sex trafficking ring. Just a thought. The legal experts who've weighed in on this say the lawsuit has real merit. The Constitution is pretty clear about when someone becomes a representative. Once they're elected and certified, they're in. The speaker doesn't get to pick and choose based on political convenience. That's not how it works. But will the courts act quickly enough? That's the question. These things can drag on for months, and every day that passes is another day Grijalva isn't voting, another day the Epstein files stay sealed, another day Johnson and whoever he's protecting get to breathe easier. The Democrats are also tying this to a larger narrative about MAGA hypocrisy. Remember Drain the Swamp? Remember Lock Her Up? Remember all that rhetoric about accountability and transparency? Well, here's a perfect opportunity to actually deliver on that. Release the Epstein files. Expose whoever needs to be exposed. Let justice happen. But instead, crickets, or worse, active obstruction. And that's what makes this story so damaging for Johnson and the MAGA wing. They built their brand on being anti-establishment, on fighting corruption, on representing the little guy against powerful elites. And now they're the ones protecting those elites, keeping secrets, playing the same swamp games they claim to hate. You can't make this stuff up. There's also this element of like moral bankruptcy here. Because let's be real, Jeffrey Epstein's victims were kids, teenagers, young girls who were trafficked and abused by wealthy, powerful men. And those men, whoever they are, they've gotten away with it for years, decades in some cases. The documents that could bring them to justice exist. They're real, they're detailed, and they're being deliberately kept from the public by elected officials who claim to care about law and order, who claim to care about protecting children, who run on family values platforms. It's disgusting. There's no other word for it. And every day that Mike Johnson blocks Grijalva swearing in, every day he prevents that vote from happening, he's complicit. He's actively choosing to protect alleged abusers over delivering justice to victims. That's what this comes down to. Okay, so let's break this down into simple points because I know this is a lot. There's legal stuff and political strategy and all these moving pieces, but at its core, this story is pretty straightforward. Point 1, Mike Johnson is blocking a newly elected Democrat from being sworn in That Democrat is Adelita Grijalva. She won her election fair and square. Results were certified. But Johnson won't let her take office. He's claiming it's because of the government shutdown and procedural issues. But legal experts say that's nonsense. There's no legitimate reason to delay her swearing in. Point 2. The real reason Johnson is blocking Grijalva is because her vote would force the release of Jeffrey Epstein's files. Democrats and transparency activists have been pushing for months to get these documents made public. They've been just a few votes short. Grijalva's vote tips the balance. Suddenly, the resolution passes. The files get released. And a lot of powerful people's secrets become public. Point 3. This is blatant hypocrisy from Johnson and the MAGA wing. Just a few months ago, Johnson was on record saying he supported full transparency on Epstein. He gave interviews, made public statements, acted like he was all about accountability. But when it came time to actually vote, he cut the House session short, and now he's actively preventing the vote from ever happening by keeping Grijalva out. Point 4. This lawsuit is serious. It's not just political theater. The legal argument is that Johnson is committing intentional disenfranchisement and potentially violating the Constitution. If the courts agree, he could be forced to swear in Grijalva immediately. And that vote on the Epstein files, it happens. Game over. So why does this matter? Why should you care? Well, let's start with the obvious. Jeffrey Epstein was a monster. He trafficked underage girls. He abused them. He facilitated their abuse by other powerful men. And when he was finally arrested, when justice was finally coming, he mysteriously died in a jail cell under circumstances that a lot of people find extremely suspicious. The documents related to his crimes, the client lists, the flight logs, the communications, all of that could tell us who else was involved, who else needs to be held accountable, who else should be in prison right now, but isn't because they're too rich or too powerful or too connected. And right now, the Speaker of the House is doing everything in his power to make sure we never find out. That should make you angry. I don't care what your politics are. If you care about justice, if you care about protecting children, if you care about holding powerful people accountable, this should infuriate you. But there's a bigger issue here too. This is about democracy itself. Adelita Grijalva was elected by tens of thousands of Arizona voters. They chose her. They wanted her to represent them in Congress. And Mike Johnson is saying, nope, sorry, your representative doesn't get to serve because I don't like how she might vote. That's not how this is supposed to work. The Speaker doesn't get to decide which elected officials get to serve based on political convenience. That's authoritarianism. That's exactly the kind of thing we're supposed to be fighting against. And the excuse they're using, the government shutdown, is so transparent, it's almost insulting. We've had shutdowns before. Members have been sworn in during those shutdowns. It's never been an issue. But now suddenly, when the vote in question could expose Epstein's network, now it's impossible? Now we have to wait? Come on, let's also talk about who this protects. We don't know for sure who's in those Epstein files, but we can make educated guesses. There are public records of people who flew on Epstein's plane. There are photos of people at his parties. There are victims who've named names but couldn't get their cases to trial because of settlements and NDAs. Some of those people are probably Trump allies. Some might be Democratic donors. Some might be foreign leaders or business titans. The point is, these are people with power, people with resources, people who can make things happen in Washington. And one of the things they apparently made happen, getting Mike Johnson to block this vote, the lawsuit demanding Grijalva swearing in, is a direct challenge to that power. It's saying, no, you don't get to manipulate the democratic process to protect your secrets. No, you don't get to keep elected representatives out of Congress because you're scared of what they might vote for. No, you don't get to use a government shutdown as cover for obstruction. Will it work? Honestly, I don't know. The courts move slowly, and Johnson has a lot of legal resources at his disposal. He can drag this out. He can file motions and appeals and procedural challenges. He can burn through months of time. But here's the thing. Every day this drags on, more people are paying attention. More people are asking questions. More people are demanding answers. And that pressure builds. It becomes harder and harder to justify the delay. It becomes more and more obvious that something shady is happening. Public opinion matters. We saw it with the January 6th investigation. We saw it with impeachment proceedings. When enough people demand accountability, eventually politicians have to respond. They might not want to, but they have to. So what happens next? Well, the lawsuit moves through the courts. That'll take weeks at minimum, maybe months. Meanwhile, Grijalva stays out of Congress. Arizona's 7th District stays without representation. And the Epstein files stay sealed. Unless, and this is important, unless the public pressure gets so intense that Johnson caves. It's possible. He did it before, back in July, when he suddenly claimed to support releasing the files. He caved to public pressure then. He could do it again, but he'd need a reason to change course. He'd need political cover, something that lets him swear in Grijalva without looking like he's admitting he was wrong. Maybe the shutdown ends, and he claims that was the holdup all along. Maybe a court issues a preliminary ruling that gives him an excuse. Maybe his own caucus starts to turn on him. Any of those things could happen, but they won't happen unless we keep talking about this, unless we keep demanding answers, unless we make it clear that this kind of obstruction is unacceptable. The other possibility, the files get released through another mechanism. Maybe someone leaks them. Maybe a judge in a different case orders their disclosure. Maybe a whistleblower comes forward. There are multiple legal battles happening around Epstein's estate and the various lawsuits from his victims. Any one of those could crack this open. And if that happens, if those files become public, then Johnson's obstruction was all for nothing. All this effort to protect people whose names are about to come out anyway, all this damage to his reputation and to Congress's credibility for nothing. That'd be pretty fitting, honestly. Here's my final thought on this. We're at a moment where trust in institutions is incredibly low. People don't trust Congress. They don't trust the courts. They don't trust the media. In stories like this, where a powerful politician blatantly manipulates the system to protect even more powerful people, this is why people think the game is rigged. Because it is. This is the proof, right here. Mike Johnson blocking democracy to keep Epstein's secrets buried. And until that changes, until we get real accountability and real transparency, that trust isn't coming back. The thing that really gets me about all this is the audacity. Like, they're not even trying to hide it anymore. They're just openly saying, yeah, we're blocking this vote. We're keeping this woman out of Congress. And we're doing it during the shutdown so nobody can really complain. It's brazen. It's shameless. And it shows how confident they are that they can get away with it. That the system is broken enough. That the public is distracted enough. That the media won't stay focused long enough for them to just run out the clock and move on. But maybe they're wrong this time. Maybe this is the issue that finally breaks through. Because Epstein, that name still means something to people. It still carries weight. People remember. They remember the victims. They remember the suspicious death. They remember all the promises about accountability that never materialized. And now here's a chance for actual accountability, real transparency, justice for people who've been waiting for it for years. And the only thing standing in the way is Mike Johnson and his procedural games. So yeah, stay tuned. This story is far from over. The lawsuit is just beginning. The pressure is building. And sooner or later, those files are coming out. The only question is how many more people like Mike Johnson will destroy their credibility trying to stop it. And when those files do come out, when we finally see who was really involved in Epstein's operation, that's going to be the story of the decade, maybe the century. Because if even half of the rumors are true, if even a fraction of what people suspect is accurate, it's going to shake the foundations of power in this country. That's what Johnson is really afraid of. Not just the individual names, but what it means for the whole system. Because once people see how deep this goes, once they understand how many powerful people were involved and how long they've been protected, they're going to start asking other questions. What else are they hiding? What other secrets are being kept? What other crimes are being covered up? And those are dangerous questions for people in power, for people who benefit from the current system, for people who built their careers on maintaining the status quo. So they'll fight, they'll obstruct, they'll delay, they'll use every trick in the book to keep those files sealed. But eventually, they'll lose. Truth has a way of coming out. Maybe not as fast as we like, maybe not as completely as we deserve, but it comes out. And when it does, Mike Johnson and everyone else who blocked it, they're going to have to answer for that. To voters, to history, to the victims who deserved justice years ago. Next time, we'll dig into who exactly might be in those files and why they're so desperate to keep them hidden. We'll look at the public records we already have, the flight logs, the court documents, the testimony, and we'll connect the dots. Because even without the sealed files, there's a lot we already know, a lot that should have led to more consequences than it did. You won't want to miss it.